up a little early. Hello, how is everyone tonight? This afternoon, evening, right? Welcome. It's nice to see you. I got to hold this microphone for our live virtual audience. Welcome to the Colorado 2022 Colorado Economic Summit. We are so glad to have you here. My name is Lane Lyon. I am the branch manager for Coldwell Banker Realty in downtown Denver. And I also have the privilege to appear on a morning news show every week on Wednesdays to talk about the real estate market. And I have to tell you, one question comes up more and more week after week, and the question is, where are we headed from here? It has been a roller coaster the last couple of years, and the Colorado Economic Summit has been such a great place to hear where we're headed. And so tonight we've got a team of experts ready to go to really dive into that question. So we're grateful to have you here. On behalf of the Coldwell Banker Realtor, who may have invited you here to join us in person or perhaps online, thank you so much for attending tonight and taking time out of your busy schedule to include us. I have to ask before we get started though, what do you guys think of this venue? We're not only in person, but is this pretty snazzy or what? Wow. So I just had to give a quick shout out to Todd Moyer from Coldwell Banker. It looks lovely and we're excited to be in this great space. Together again. Is that nice? Let's do a round of applause. Last year we were here all by ourselves, weren't we, Chris? It was lonely and many of you watched online. We're grateful for that. We have a wealth of information for you tonight, whether you are a business owner, an entrepreneur, maybe you're thinking about buying or selling your own home, maybe you want to get into real estate investing or continue with that this year. We have a wealth of information headed your way, and we hope that you find tonight's program beneficial. Before we get started though, I would like to give a quick round of applause for our sponsors. They are up on the screen here on the sides here and behind me. Without their support, we could not put this presentation together for you. So if you don't mind, for those of you in our studio, please give them a round of applause. Guaranteed Rate Affinity, Guardian Title, American Home Shield, Prudential, Real G, and Real Property Management Colorado. Thank you so much. So without further ado, let's get started. And we are going to start with the rental market. And there's no better person to fill us in than Greg Batchelor, who is the owner of Real Property Management Colorado. So please welcome Greg to the stage.
Good afternoon. Oh, that didn't work out well. We're just going to go with that. Hey, it's great to be with all of you. As Lane mentioned earlier, it was awfully lonely in this room. Last year, we knew many of you were online, but we didn't get to enjoy those of you in person. So it's great to have those of you that are here, great to have those of you online as well. So welcome today. Over the next 15 minutes, we're gonna take some time and just talk through a bit in terms of where the rental market is at. We're gonna look at some trends both nationally, locally, what that means for you as a real estate professional, what does that mean for your investor clients, etc. So without further ado, we're going to hit it fast. How will rental properties impact you and your investors in 2022? First off, let's spin back over the past 2 years. It feels like a bit of a blur. At times it feels like COVID has gone by very fast. At other times it feels like COVID has been going on for forever. There is so much information that has come out in the past 2 years while we have been in this pandemic, and there is still so much misinformation that's out there. So just a quick recap. I was talking to an investor the other day and he said, oh, these eviction moratoriums, they're so problematic. And I went, oh man, they're done. So here's the scoop on that particular front. Any of the eviction moratoriums at the federal, state, local level, they're all gone. Courts are back in session. The eviction processes are all normal. So we went through a time over these past 2 years where there were varying stages of eviction moratoriums, some legislative changes, changes in protocol from the Colorado Real Estate Commission. All of that has either come and gone or there's some new policies that are in place. But just know you're no longer hamstrung, or your investors are no longer hamstrung by some of these pieces that were in place. Let's talk just real quick in terms of how did Colorado landlords fare? And the answer to that, I have great news. Colorado landlords did really, really well during this pandemic. At the start of 2021, Colorado landlords got 73% receive full payment versus 55% nationally, about an 18-point spread on that. By the time we got to the end of the year, just a couple months ago, 88% of all landlords are reporting they got full rent versus 65% nationally. That's a 23% gap. And then as of December, only 17% of Colorado landlords who could evict actually needed to go through with an eviction. That's great news, because here's what that tells us. The marketplace was operating very, very efficiently. Landlords and tenants were working things out without even having to go through court proceedings, eviction proceedings, etc. So much of that took place during these past 2 years, and that was a great place to end the year on. Those statistics nationally, not so much the case, but Colorado did really, really well. So kudos to every single one of you that were landlords, or your investor clients that were landlords in Colorado. You are in a great spot to be a landlord and to be investing in properties. Single family rentals, I'm just giving you a gauge just here real quick, based on a by county basis, based on how many bedrooms that there are, the different types of properties. Here's what's the key takeaway from this slide. Every single one of these numbers are higher than they were last year. That's no surprise to anybody. On the single family home side, demand has been so strong. People are moving to Colorado in droves right now. It's a great problem to have. Whether you are working a residential transaction, whether you are an investor, whether you're working with an investor, we may not like the traffic much, but we love what it's doing for real estate prices, rental appreciation, the whole 9 yards. All these numbers higher than they were a year ago. So let's talk about just the marketplace just in general. This is a fascinating stat. It was in the Denver Business Journal about a month ago. The combined value of Denver area homes have increased over $400 billion, not million, billion dollars since 2012. That is substantial net worth appreciation. And whether that is you owning a primary residence or you owning a rental property or a combination of both, that's a significant increase. Denver's total housing market value in 2021 was $635 billion. That's incredible all by itself. That puts us 17th out of the top metros. And then Colorado's total housing market eclipsed $1 trillion for the first time in 2021. It's $1.2 trillion. That's an all-time high. So take all of that and stop just for a moment. What each one of us has, whether it's our primary residence, whether it's an investment property, whether you own that investment property yourself, whether you're working with clients that do, anybody that owns real estate in Colorado is sitting on a gold mine, period. Every single piece of property, whether that is residential, whether that's commercial, whether that's a piece of land, every single thing that we own in Colorado is moving up into the right. Values are going up substantially to the point that this is the first time in Colorado where total combined housing market was over $1 trillion. That's a lot of money. Let's talk apartments. There are still cranes all over the place, but if you will notice, there's not as many cranes as there once were. Nationwide, there were 334 units scheduled to come online in 2021. Typically that number is close. Sometimes it's a little bit less, a little bit more. We didn't actually see that the data is not out in terms of where that landed, but that was the projection going into Q4. Builders added roughly 5,600 apartment units in the Denver area during 2021. That's about half of what they did in 2020. So I think they're realizing we have to be careful. Right now, there is so much population growth. And I know Elliot's going to do a great job talking about population growth, economic growth, job growth. So I'm going to defer to him on all of that. But understand this, we have those three underlying factors up and down the front range. From Fountain Fort Carson to Wellington, the I-25 corridor is where about 80% of our population is, and that's where the majority of population growth is. That's where job growth is. That's where traffic is. Don't like that so much, but it's one of the things that comes along with that. So as a result, we have watched throughout the year rental rates climb. We hit Q4, the brakes came on a bit. Some of that is, and probably most of it, is just seasonality. We tend to see that a little bit, but rental rates actually began to fall in the winter season, and vacancy rates on the apartment side climbed to 6.7%. Single family side, vacancy rates are still 2 to 3%, which basically means there really is no vacancy. Anything less than 3%, economists will tell you on that particular front, you're just dealing with a property that's just turning. Anybody want to pay some high apartment rents? We've got them. Union Denver, they have a unit you can rent right now for $14,898. Oh no, it's not $15,000. It's less than that. But it can be yours at the Pullman, $19,790, just under 20 grand a month. It can be yours. Now, these are numbers we've never seen before until the past couple of years. But we have some beautiful high-end apartment rentals here in the Denver area. Those are just two and some of the highest that we have. Here's a component when we think about why rental rates are doing what they're doing. People want to live here. Denver's ranked one of the top 10 metros for attracting inbound renters. 45.5% of all searches, according to Apartment List, pertain to a search that looks at Denver. The only couple of locations that had more searches than we did, Dallas, Atlanta, and New York. It's incredible. I'm sorry, people looking to move to Denver were wanting to get out of Dallas, Atlanta, and New York. Who can blame them? Look at the Front Range. When I was driving to work today, the mountains were spectacular. Not a cloud in the sky. It's beautiful. And because we have moved into an economy during this pandemic, when so many people are not tied to a building, they are more tied to a computer screen. They are tied to Teams and Zoom and WebEx, you name it. We are in a scenario where people are actually more than ever before getting to choose where they want to live. And so people want to live in Colorado Springs, and they want to live in Boulder, and they want to live in Fort Collins. They want to live here in Colorado. We get that. We all live here. And so for investors, they're beginning to look at that as well. When you have as many people coming here, many folks want to buy, and so they need your services. The folks that don't want to buy or can't buy, they need our services or the services of a property management company to be able to help with that particular place. With that many renters moving to Colorado, it's a great opportunity to investors to get more gold out of their gold mine. One of the things that we watch year after year is where are the one-way moves from U-Haul. U-Haul puts out a report every single year, and it's telling us a pretty consistent story. If you look at this graph, we started to move in a direction in 2019 when I spoke here. The report highlighted the fact that places like Denver and the Front Range were becoming so expensive, wage growth relative to rental prices, that we were 42nd out of 50 states in terms of people making one-way moves to Colorado. Enter COVID-19. When all of a sudden people could take their wages from a much cheaper place where they, instead of living in a place where they didn't necessarily want to live, they could take their wages from New York City and bring it here. They could take their wages from Boston and bring it here. They could take their wages from the Bay Area and bring it here. And so there were a lot of places where there were rents much higher than what we had. And people said, I don't have to live in New York anymore. No offense to New York. I love New York. They didn't have to live there anymore. They had an opportunity to move this direction, and they did. Which is why in 2020, we had the 6th highest number of moves into Colorado. In 2021, the 7th out of the 50 states. The other states, they will not surprise you. They're the states that we are all hearing about. People are moving to Idaho like in droves right now. People are moving to Tennessee and Texas, Colorado. Those are some of the states that are ahead of us. This will also come as not a surprise to you. It's not on the screen, but the number one state for one-way outbound moves, anybody want to guess? California, totally true. We all know why you see as many California plates on I-25 right now. It's because they're moving in droves out of California. Here's what that's doing, though. It's creating some growing pains. So these are just some stats on the city and county of Denver. Population is increasing. 115,000 residents in the last decade into the city and county of Denver alone. Denver's population is literally growing 1 point to 1.5 points every single year. Most of the projections for the entire state put us at just below 6 million right now. By the time that we hit 2030, most projections are saying that we'll be in the 7 million population range for the state of Colorado. And most of that range, any of the demographers will tell you, the majority of that is I-25 from Fountain, just south of Colorado Springs, to Wellington, just north of Fort Carson, and about 25 miles east or west of I-25. That's about where 80% of our population in the state lives, in that big rectangle. Well, it's creating growing pains. We don't necessarily have the infrastructure. If it wasn't for the fact that we have so many people still working from home right now, you think I-25 is a mess in the morning or the afternoons? It would be even worse. So many people still work from home that we don't have to worry about that quite as much. Commutes are increasing day by day by day. And here's why. As rent rates increase, as housing prices increase, people are having to make some decisions in terms of where they live in regards to a proximity to an office, if they indeed need to go to an office. The third fastest growing city in the country, our little Greeley? That blows my mind. I've lived in Colorado since the late 70s. All Greeley used to be is where the Broncos used to have training camp. Mark Cooper's in the house. He probably practiced at training camp in Greeley. And all Greeley was a stinky cow town. It's not the case. It's the third fastest growing city in the country. That's what's transpiring. People are beginning to rent in places like Bennett, Colorado, Strasburg, Colorado. People are renting in Peyton and Falcon and commuting into Colorado Springs. People are actually commuting from Cheyenne, Wyoming to Fort Collins every single day. Rents are cheaper. Housing prices are cheaper. So I'm from the Bay Area, and one of the things that we've gone back and we visit family and friends, they have friends who commute an hour or two every single day, and they don't even think about it. They'll commute from Sacramento into the Bay Area. They'll commute from in the East Bay over to the West Bay. They'll take trains and this thing called BART, Bay Area Rapid Transit. We're not there yet in Colorado, but remember, we're sitting on gold. And whether that gold is your primary residence or investment properties or anything of that nature, anything that you own here in the state of Colorado is a gold mine right now. Here's the newest craze, and I'll leave you with this. One of the things that we're beginning to watch builders do, and it's in the early stages, they are building subdivision developments and renting out every single home. It's a new piece. We're beginning to see it across the country. There's plans already in Colorado to do that. It'll be interesting to see how this plays out over time. It's definitely an early stage, but a lot of builders are realizing there's opportunity. People want to have a single family home. They need home office environment. They may not be able to buy yet. They may not want to buy yet, want the flexibility. And so they're considering these types of options. We're going to see more of it. We're in the early stages. Investors are going this direction. Wall Street is going this direction. We're going to see more of it coming. It's great to be with you all today. I'm going to turn it back to Mr. Lane Lyon. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you, Greg Batchelor. Appreciate the information and the insight. We're going to turn now from the rental market to the resale and residential and housing market. And for that, we're going to bring up Chris McGatt, who has had a bird's eye view of the market for several years. Is a regular here at the Economic Summit. Ladies and gentlemen, Chris McGatt.
Wayne, thank you very much. Always good to see you. So good to be here. And Greg, thank you for that information. The only problem I have is whenever I hear Greg talk about the rental market, what's happening in the Colorado, specifically tenant market, I always have this, like, I want to go out and buy 2 or 3 income properties. And I can't afford to do that every time I see you, but you're spot on. It really is interesting. And I will also have to say that I've been in the business for 36 years now. Boy, I go fast. And in 36 years, I've never addressed a group like this tonight with the information that we have. I've never, ever seen numbers in Colorado like we're seeing right now, which is very exciting. But I gotta tell you, it's also a little bit nerve-wracking, because where will it go? We're gonna hear more about that. We've got Elliot, we've got Tammy coming up soon, but there's a lot of energy in our real estate market right now, and certainly worthy of a conversation. You know, first and foremost, you did such a good job on your presentation, I don't think I should do it again. I'll go ahead and do my presentation. How's that sound? Hey, there we go. So first and foremost, like Greg said, we've got Elliot here today, and Elliot will talk a lot about the national trends, not only with regards to the economy in general, but also the housing market. So Elliot, I'm going to let you cover that. You do it so well. So let's talk a little more granular here. One of the things that we look at, and we talk about, oftentimes you hear a lot about, are averages. And one of the challenges we have is that, like, the averages may be statistically accurate, but completely irrelevant to anyone when it comes to real estate. What I mean by that, it's like the average temperature. None of us wakes up in the morning and goes, oh, what's the temperature in America today? I'm going to decide what I'm going to do. Like, that doesn't matter. What matters is, what's the temperature in Cherry Creek? What's the temperature in Vail, right? Same thing happens with our real estate market. The market in Denver may be very different than Fort Collins, be very different than Vail. And if we're making decisions, we need to know about the market that we have interest in. So we're going to try and look at a couple different elements on the market as we move forward. Now, we get the question a lot of times, where do we get our data? Where do we curate that information that you're going to see in a few minutes? And it comes from a number of different sources. Not only our local, along the entire Front Range, but also a site called the FHFA.gov. And this is a governmental organization that's been harvesting really good data since 1991. And I recommend each one of you jots down that web address, take a picture of it, whatever makes it easy for you, because it's a great reference point. It's free, it's fully available, there's great information, not just in Colorado, but about the entire country, real estate trends, and actual appreciation rates. So let's kick this thing off. Let's get some real numbers, starting out with appreciation across the country. This is mind-boggling. I mean, I've got to look at this like 2 or 3 times and go, wait a minute, can this really be? Because you see kind of where we've landed over the past 10 years as a country. And then all of a sudden, in the third quarter of 2021, we see this skyrocketing appreciation rate, which for all of us in this room today, if we're a homeowner, what a great feeling it is to see our values increase. Now, if you look at the nation, you look at some regions in the nation, the mountain region, our region, actually carried a 23.6% appreciation in the past 12 months. So not only is the nation strong, but then when you look at our region specifically, it's unbelievable. And then Colorado clocking in here at over 20%. Like I said, we've been together, many of us, a number of years. We've never seen numbers like this before. 20%, that's up from 7.4 in 2020. So let's talk a bit about what's driving that and how it all fits into the big picture. One of the things that the FHFA gives us as well is this idea of cumulative appreciation. And this is something that I don't think many of us in the room really recognize or really understand the power. If you look up here at these graphs, you're going to see 2020, 2021. We stack rank every single state in the country. We look at where we stand from an appreciation standpoint. Colorado is ranked very well over years, but if you look like 27 last year out of 50, that's okay, it's fine. Look this year, 14. We've been 12 before. We've never been number 1 before. But here, if you were making the decision in 1991, a number ago, to buy 10 houses in America, you pick the state, any state you want. As long as one of those states was Colorado, you'd find out very quickly that the home you bought in Colorado has appreciated more than any other house in the country. I mean, I don't think of Colorado as being like that iconic, epic real estate, like frenzied market. I think of it as being steady. I think of it as being a market that you can depend upon. But but not number one in the country. So right now, if you looked at last year, we ranked, if you bought that home, you would have gotten more appreciation with your real estate investments in Colorado than any other state. This year, Utah and Colorado are neck and neck in this. But really good information, especially if you're thinking, boy, where do I want to invest in the future? Big question for all of us. Not only do we see great opportunities economically with real estate, but we're also just a great place to call home, aren't we? You look every year, I mean, there hasn't been a year we haven't been ranked in one of our communities in Colorado. This year came out with Money Magazine. Centennial came in number 8. Parker was number 2 a year ago. And then, quite frankly, you heard Greeley is the fastest growing city, or number 3 fastest growing community in America. Just some great national energy around this. So let's cut into a little bit more of the local and regional information. And remember, what we're going to look at today is really in the rearview mirror. It's what has already happened. Tammy will walk us through a little bit about what to expect in the future, but we got to ground that in good, solid information. First of all, we're coming off a all-time high number of units sold in Colorado. 2021. As you see the numbers here, we, yes, sold a lot of properties. We had a very, very tough days on market. We'll talk more about the days on market and what that means to the community. And then you'll also see how much inventory we have on the market right now to be able to sell into the future. And then also looking at the current number of active listings and sales price. Both average sales price and median sales price hitting all-time records in 2020. By the way, we got a number of folks that are watching online with us today. We also are going to make this deck available to every one of you in the room. So my recommendation is take your time, go through some of these numbers. They're worthy of really understanding. But moving forward, over year 2001, a little bit 2020. Was that want to own real estate? It was because they couldn't find a what? House to buy, right? That was the problem. Enough people that were willing to sell their home that they already had. And by the way, in Colorado, where quite frankly, we don't build enough houses to keep up with the demand. We don't have the ability to get enough entitlement done, to get enough properties on the market to satisfy that need. Plus, we have builders that probably smartly are still a little bit concerned about what happened back in 2007, 8, and they're a little bit resistant to come in too strong. But we don't have enough properties to sell. We can't satisfy demand. We can't sell as many units. But you'll see if you look really at the last 10 years up here, we're rolling right around that 57 to 63,000 home sales a year in the metro area. Now, it's also probably, I think, a good thing to point out where most of the activity. We see a lot of activity in that $400,000 to $600,000 price point. In fact, 41% of all of our sales occur in that one narrow banded price point. Now, days on market are really interesting. And again, we're seeing things we've never seen before as an industry, and quite frankly, don't necessarily know what the ramifications are. But as you look up here, on this on the graph, going from 9 days on market for a typical sale in the metro area here in 2012 down to 15 days on the market right now. What is available, what is going to sell, sells very quickly. Now, if you look down below here, you'll see average days on market in the MLS price point. Really interesting. If you look down the very far left-hand side, there's actually a spike up. Homes at under $200,000 take 32 days to sell. And I'm wondering, why is that? Then I realized, I don't think there are any homes under 200,000. You can't find them. It takes at least 2 weeks to find one before you can buy it, I guess. The reality is there's so little inventory. On that far left-hand side, there's noise in there. That's oftentimes distressed properties that need to be redone completely, or they're just simply destroyed, and we're working through that. But if you look up to the right-hand side, you'll see a story behind the story. And that's the upper end, the luxury market. So yes, homes in the metro area are selling in 15 days, a record low number. But we can't mistake. We have to acknowledge that these higher priced homes priced at over $1 million, for example, are taking 50 days. right? They're taking 3 times. Homes in the ultra luxury market in the metro over $2 million are taking, in many cases, well over 85 days. So we've got to reset our expectations if you're looking to sell a home in that price point or you work that price point. It's a very, very different market. The competitive pressures are very, very different. It's just a different kind of market. And then average sales price, if you look here at the average closed prices of homes, again, looking at over a long period of time, but from 2012 all to 2021, going from $281,000 if you own real estate. This is a real problem. If you're 23 years old and you want to buy a home, part of the American dream, right? Where do you start? How do you find your way in this market? It's a very, very challenging place to be. It's a tale of two cities, right? And we have to acknowledge that. So we're trying to figure out our ways that we can help younger buyers or maybe buyers who don't have the resources to be able to get into the market, to be able to enjoy what's happened in the real estate market, and that we expect to see continue in the real estate market moving forward. You'll see a bit also the discrepancy between multi-families, that would be condominiums, townhomes, as well as single-family homes, and the price points around those as well. No big surprise there, but what we are seeing is that consistent increase in all market segments, in all market areas. Greg mentioned earlier, it doesn't matter where in Colorado you own real estate. Real estate's a great thing to own right now, and it's been since 1991, and quite frankly before that as well. So, other range markets that we're looking at, certainly northern Colorado and south of Denver, southern Colorado, are really big and really important markets to us. For the most part, you'll see a very similar trend. But we also see that those markets, Denver is a leading market for these other sub-markets. So what is happening in Denver eventually happens in Greeley, it happens at whole northern corridor, and then looking down in the southern part of the state, again, we see some of these same similarities happening. But here's one thing we see that's consistent. A lot of people want to live in Colorado, and a lot of people are coming to Colorado. And when you have more people coming to Colorado, they've got some of income, and they want to own real estate, they want to be a part of this future period of time, they are looking to buy. And we're not able to create enough new inventory. We can't get enough people that own homes right now to wake up and say, you know what, I've always wanted to live in Toledo. Like, we just don't get that very often, right? So people, for a good reason, want to stay here, which is great. It's also what makes Colorado such a special place to call home. It makes the magic happen here. So this is a balancing act that we're trying to work with. We're trying to make sure we've got good, safe, quality inventory for new future home buyers to move into, and for our existing home buyers to be able to find what's right for them right now. We have homeowners currently that, quite frankly, they're not in the house they really want to be in. They're not in the house that they really need to be in, but they're paralyzed because they just don't know what to do. They are fearful about losing what they have in pursuit of what they think they really want. So what happens there is they do nothing. And that makes the market kind of stagnant, as we have right now. That supply, that demand keeps increasing, supply is staying stagnant, and prices are moving up. Again, there are good parts to that, and there are challenges to that as well. And with that, I think it's a perfect time to really look at what's going to happen moving forward. That's a question I want to hear more about. Before I go to Tammy and you get a good sense of what's happening there, this is always fun. We do this every year. We take that data that we get from the FHFA.gov. We look at all of their MSAs. We stack them all. We look at what is the community that has the highest level of appreciation in our. And this past year, it was Boise at nearly 35% appreciation year over year. I mean, unbelievable. And we bracket it with a community that has the lowest appreciation. In this case, San Francisco, San Mateo. Why? Because listen, if your average sales price is $4 million, how much higher can you get, right? There's not a lot of room for that to go up. And there are other reasons around that as well. But then what we do is we sandwich Colorado right in the middle of that. Every single community that the MSA, the FHFA Gov goes through and chronicles. And check this out. Good old Pueblo, Colorado, which not too many years ago, we were actually hoping for a positive number there, is skyrocketing at nearly 25% appreciation. Colorado Springs right behind there at 23%. The metro area at a really solid 18, can't believe I'm saying these numbers, 18.6%. Boulder at 17% appreciation. Fort Collins, Loveland, really at 16%. What a healthy, what a vibrant real estate market here in Colorado. So without further ado, thank you for being here tonight. It's so good to see people. We appreciate all of you that are dialing in or zooming in with us right now. Lane, back to you.
Thank you.
You bet.
For that national and regional look. And I know many of you who work in the real estate industry are experiencing a lot of high emotions when it comes to our local market. Those of you who work with buyers and sellers know that it's been quite a ride already, and we're just into the second month of 2022. So we're going to dial in a little bit closer, take a look at our local market, and I think Tammy Miller might have a crystal ball that she brought with her. Yes? No? Okay, well, she's going to talk about our local market. Please welcome our Commander-in-Chief, Regional Vice President, Tammy Miller.
Thank you so much, Lane. Thank you, Chris and Greg. Great information as always. So before we dive into my crystal ball, as Lane put it, 2020 brought about a lot of challenges, nothing new to anyone in this room. But what we saw was a change in the reasons why buyers decided to buy and sellers decided to sell. And much of that has translated over into 2021. So for example, instead of downsizing, they were looking for bigger houses that provided 2 office spaces and room to homes closer to friends and family. So let's take a look at some of the buyer trends and seller trends for 2021 as provided by the National Association of Realtors. Every year they produce a buyer and seller profile. So let's take a look at some of that happened in 2021. And for fun, what they sent us was also a comparison of buyer traits from 40 years ago, or 1981, compared to 2021. So this is kind of fun. 95% of the buyers out there started their home search online. Not a surprise. 0% of buyers started their home search online in 1981. So for the younger crowd out there was a time when we didn't look for homes online. Those lovely, highly coveted MLS books. Okay, so some other interesting stats. 7% of buyers looked for a home with the newspaper in 2021 as compared to 22% in 1981. This is pretty interesting. We talk about cash in the market. 87% of the buyers financed a home in 2021 compared to 93% in 1981. And 40 years ago, the average down payment was 20% compared to 13% last year. 76% of home buyers bought a single-family home in 1981 compared to 82% last year. 82% in 1981 used an agent compared to 87% last year. And here is a staggering stat. A repeat buyer in 1981 was 36 years old compared to 56 years old last year. I thought that was pretty interesting. Okay, so let's take a look at last year and some of the reasons why buyers moved based on trying to locate a home in a desirable neighborhood. The number one reason that they looked for that neighborhood was convenience to friends and family at 63%, the quality of the neighborhood. 45% close to friends and family. We talked about that move to remote working. I think that Chris touched on that a little bit, and so did Greg. Convenience to a job. That has really dropped year over year. Again, being able to work remote, we don't need to be close to where we work anymore. And Greg alluded to that with the traffic, or lack of traffic, so that was pretty interesting. 39% were looking for affordability in a neighborhood. So there were 2 compromises that buyers made last year when deciding on a home. They were willing to compromise on price, was their number one compromise. I will say that that speaks to our low inventory. And the second thing they were willing to compromise on was the condition of the home. When you're competing for a home, you're less likely to be concerned on the condition. Both of those very interesting in 2021. Okay, so let's take a look at previously owned homes purchased by region. So 83% of the buyers last year purchased a pre-owned home or a previously owned home, compared to only 17% which purchased a new build. And I know that my friend Elliot is going to talk about supply and demand and builders and where we are with that, but I thought that that was a pretty interesting stat in the West. So when sellers decided to sell, they were willing to move, in the West, they were willing to move 18 miles from their previous or their current home. Again, driven by the ability to work remote and also the desire to live close to friends and family. The South, they took a little bit longer of a drive from a previously owned home to their new home, and that was 20 miles. All right, one of the biggest drivers and the market to watch last year was our luxury market. There are some very interesting stats. Chris touched on it a little bit, but let's take a look at the luxury market in 2021. Single-family properties priced from $1 million to $5 million outsold the $5 million plus market by 29 times. A huge growth in our luxury market in 2021. The attached $1 million homes outpaced the $5 and up $1 million homes 45 times. Tremendous growth in our luxury market, something maybe we didn't expect, but we certainly saw that last year. Where's the money? Who's got the money? Our baby boomers, they are the wealthiest generation. They have the biggest real estate wealth footprint ever at $2.4 million. So followed by, and this was really interesting, the silent generation, 76 and up. So this doesn't play into traditionally what we were thinking about older folks downsizing, liquidating real estate. They actually are very active in that luxury market last year. Of course, our Gen Xers and our millennials are poised to be the new power generation and power players in real estate. Real estate wealth grew 24% in 2020 compared to 2019. But check this stat out. Real estate wealth grew 77% from January to July of 21. So in 6 months, I'll repeat that, real estate wealth grew 77%. We also saw a 244.5% increase in the number of $1 million homes sold last year. Incredible movement in our luxury market. All right, so it's the fun part of my segment always. Let's take a look at the top 5 highest priced homes sold in America. Coming in at number 5, County Road, Palm Beach, Florida. Chris, is that your home? Sold for $122.7 million. Coming in at number 4, Climbing Arrow Ranch in Bozeman, Montana at $136 million. Number 3, 220 Central Park South Penthouse. I'd like to have that address. In Manhattan, sold for $157 million. Paradise Cove, Malibu, California. We don't want to leave our West Coast people out, at $177 million. And the number 1 highest priced home sold in America, Beaverhead Ranch, Dillon, Montana at $200 million. There is some luxury properties moving in Montana. I don't want to go there. Okay, so let's take a look local. The highest priced home sold in northern Colorado, which was an all-time record, was in Fort Collins, 12,000 square feet, 5 bedrooms, and of course, if you have 4 bedrooms, you need 9 baths. And it was actually a local buyer. The CEO of OtterBox bought that home. It was listed at $4.4 million and sold at $4.3 million. Days on market was 8 months. Pretty nice for that price point. Taxes, $22,000. It's what you get for 9 bathrooms. Okay. The highest price sold in the metro area comes out of Cherry Hills Village, 32,000 square feet, 6 bedrooms, and you need 13 baths. The seller of that was none other than Coach Shanahan. It was listed for $22 million. It sold for $15.7, and it was on the market for 3 years. Bargain. Yes, a bargain. There you go. Okay. The highest price sold in the metro. I think we already did that one. Oh, that's the taxes, $16,000, so a little less. Okay. Highest price sold in Colorado. This is up in Aspen, 21,000 square feet, 9 bedrooms, and apparently 13 baths is the thing to do. Sale price $72.5 million, and in Pitkin County, you're going to pay some taxes, $77,938 taxes for 1 year. Incredible. But again, the luxury market definitely made a move in 2021, and it'll be very interesting to see what happens in 2022. All right, speaking of this year, it's crystal ball time. I wish I had one. I will leave that up to Elliot. He's the expert in that. Here are some predictions for 2022. Inventory will remain in short supply. I wanted to add on that line, short supply will continue to sit there for a while, I'm afraid. Home prices will continue to increase. Expect double-digit appreciation in some of our neighborhoods. Again, it's great if you own a property. If you're looking at selling and diversifying your portfolio, maybe time to do that. Mortgage rates will make a move, so don't delay if you're looking at buying. I'm hearing maybe 2 or 3 increases this year. Don't know what that looks like either. I will leave that up to Elliot. Change in the new build process. New home builders are changing the game. So what I'm hearing from some agents out there is spec homes will be a thing of the past. Builders will no longer be building spec homes. Probably not a surprise here. The other part is builders are not going to be putting properties under contract until they have a pretty good idea of the supply chain and when those properties are going to be able to close. So I know back in 2020 and 2021, we saw folks under contract with builders for up to a year and then counted on some delays after that. So what I'm hearing is builders are going to not put properties under contract until they have a better idea of the time frame on a closing. Also, just be aware and talk to your real estate professional. Builders are building in some increases based on supplies and based on demand. So you want to be aware of that. Real estate strategies for 2022. If you're buying this year, get prepared, get pre-qualified. As my mom would say, get all your ducks in a row. It's really, really important to get ahead of the game there. Select a real estate agent that knows the market and your selected neighborhood. Get a plan. Pre-plan with your agent. Discuss the risks that you're willing to take in an offer. Are you willing to offer over list price? Are you willing to cover an appraisal gap? Are you willing to waive some of the rights on an inspection? Know that in advance. Talk to your agent and get a plan on that. Don't put yourself in a position where you're making an emotional decision because you really love that kitchen and maybe overspending or what you're comfortable spending on that home. Stay in the market. You will win. Buyers, you will win. You will get a house. Just stay in the market, work with your professional, and pre-plan what that looks like for you in the future. I know that we hear stories all the time. This house went for $100,000 over list price. This house went for $200,000 over list price. But you know what? I was reminded by somebody in the room today that some homes are still selling at list price. So don't let those stories scare you out of the market. If you're selling this year, even in a seller's market, pricing matters. Work with your real estate professional, price your home at market value, not what you think a buyer may escalate to pay for your home. Staging matters. More offers are not necessarily the best strategy. Okay? And then here's just one more little tip on the seller side of it. Your highest offer is not necessarily always your best offer. So talk with your agent about that. Okay, Chris mentioned it. Real estate is a local phenomenon. If you would like more information about your neighborhood or your area, contact your Coldwell Banker agent that invited you to attend the Economic Summit, or email me at tammy.miller@coloradohomes.com. We're happy to put you on a market report or an area report for your neighborhood. Great information that comes out monthly. Happy to share that with you. Thank you so much for being here. It's great to see live faces in the audience, and for everyone tuning in online, thank you so much for joining us. I'll turn this back over to you, Lane.
Thank you so much, Tammy. Lots of good information there. Well, it is time now for our featured guest, the man many of you have come to see as well and have appreciated hearing from in years past. A man who, even during some of the most anxious times over the last couple of years, found a way to make us smile. He specializes in that. He's got a long resume that I could go through right now. But we all really know him as a chief economist and the man behind the inspirational Graphs and Laughs. Please put your hands together for Mr. Elliot Eisenberg.
Wow, thank you. Wow, what can I say? It's really a pleasure to be here. Last year we did this and it was very different. No one was here, we had COVID and so on and so forth. And that goes to show you that we all managed to get through COVID. We manage as households, we manage as individuals, we manage as governments, we manage as firms, and we get through this. We're going to get through this, and I'll talk more about this. But let's begin with the data. There's a lot to talk about and a lot to cover. Let's begin by looking. Look, GDP is composed of 4 terms. C is household consumption. It's 69% of GDP. It's so damn good. That's the problem. We're buying too much stuff, and our supply chains are failing as a result. If we just saved more money, I'm not kidding, we'd be better off at some level. But that's 69% of GDP. This is 15% of GDP. It's fine. Firms are investing in equipment, not so much in plant, but equipment, and they're buying tons of inventory, pushing inventory sales up. So that's really good too. So you got 85% of GDP is rocking. Okay, G is government spending. It's dropping dramatically, right? Stimmy checks are over, PPP loans are over, and on and on and on. Unemployment insurance and all that stuff is gone. So the deficit this year will be down from 3 trillion 2 years ago, then 2.8 trillion. This year, maybe 1.2. And that's a huge decline of 1.6 trillion bucks. And that's a huge reduction in government spending. So it's fiscally very contractionary. This is exports minus imports. It knocked 1 percentage point off GDP in 2021, it'll probably knock 0.5% off. So it'll be a bit of a better thing. So we got terrific, good, fine, weak. We're going to have a good year. I promise you, 22 is going to be fine. Whether it's 3.5 or 4, we'll see, but it's fine. And you can see things are improving. We got problems. You're going to hear me talk about supply chains, inflation, lack of workers, all transportation issues. Yeah, I get it. But despite that, we're going to be okay. And you can see it in automobiles. So automobiles were great. You know, they crash in COVID because we all think we're going to die. Who needs a car, right? I'll be dead in June 2020. I'll be dead. Why am I buying a car? Then we get out, we realize we're not all going to die. Then we all move to suburbia and exurbia, as you guys all talked about earlier, Greg and both of you. And then it plummets. It plummets not because we don't want cars. Just as you said, there's no houses to buy. That's why there's no housing sales. Here there's no car sales because there are no cars to buy because of inventory problems, because of supply chain problems, mostly of semiconductors. But, and you'll hear me say this over and over again, the worst is over. I'm not convinced that rise is a real rise. I think it's more some cars that were in the lot that they put some chips into and sold them. But I think the worst is over. GM, Ford, Toyota, everyone says they're going to have better sales in 22. So they're managing supply chain better, managing whatever it is they got to manage. They're managing it better. So things will improve. That's the point. The worst is over. This is total sales. So here we're selling everything, right? And it's not so bad. This is all right, so you look at this at first blush and you go, whoa, it's bad. But it's not. This is selling of goods. You're buying things that you can take home in a bag or have Amazon shipped to you. And we were home, we had nowhere to go, we had nothing to do, we had tons of savings. Like Chris, he was going to go fly to Madagascar or something and buy a $40 million home, but he couldn't because of COVID. So he saved all that money and bought 4 million Pelotons. That's what he did with the money, right? There was nothing to do. But now we have all that stuff. We still want more, there's cars and so on. But it's slowing down. You can see this decline. This is because of January hangover from Christmas. It's an Omicron problem. People don't want to... It's also, people shopped early in September, October for Christmas and not November and December because supply chain problems. This is a return to normal. Look at this graph. If you look at the red, this is purchase of goods. You can see we come out of the crash of early 2020 and boom, for a year, a straight year, the purchases of goods skyrockets. Okay, thank you very much, but we're done now. And now it begins to come down, while services slowly and progressively improve. That's what's going to happen more. We're going to do more baseball, basketball, ballet, bars. That's what we want to do. We're deprived of that. We're not deprived of buying crap. The Amazon guy knows everyone's house in the country at this point, right? The driver there. We know, whatever. This is crazy. In every other recession, think about this. I'll ask you a skill testing question. You have a choice. This is a normal recession. In a normal recession, your chances are you may lose your job. It's a palpable fear because consumer confidence goes to hell. We stop buying things. Firms lose confidence. They don't want to sell things. Inventories decline. The economy shrinks. In a situation like that, you have a choice. You can spend $200 going out to dinner or $20,000, $40,000 buying a car. You must buy one of these things. In a normal recession, which one would you buy? $200 dinner, $40,000 car. You buy the $200 dinner. But not in this recession. In this recession, you go, no, I'll buy the $40,000 car because the $200 dinner, you might die. And I'm not going to lose my job. I have nowhere to go, nothing to do. Stimmy checks, unemployment benefits, right? It goes on and on and on. No, don't pay your mortgage, don't pay your student loans, don't pay rent, eviction moratoria, and so on. Forbearance. Oh, I got cash. Let's spend. So instead of normally when in a recession, services go up and goods go down, here it's the other way around. Goods go up, services go down. Well, now services are going up and the goods are returning to normal. And that's why you have a slide like that. This is not bad news, right? And why is all this craziness happening? It's because of COVID, right? COVID still runs our lives to some extent. But, I really think we're going from the pandemic phase of COVID to the endemic phase of COVID. The percentage of Americans that have gotten double vaccinated and boosted is about 30%. 65% have had double shots, double injections. And God knows how many of us have had COVID. I mean, 20, 30, 40% of us have probably had Omicron by this point, most with no symptoms, right? So between the Omicron variant and the Delta variant and the boosters and the shots, we're getting close to something resembling, herd immunity. Now, no one knows how long this lasts. No one knows when the next variant will come, but we're getting something. So I think that this is the beginning of the end of COVID as a major, major problem. It will be with us for the rest of our life. We're not going to get rid of it. People will die every year. I want them to start showing not these types of numbers, but showing death numbers on a daily basis, right? When that number falls to 50 or 100 a day, we can essentially say that's the number of people who are killed, die every year because of the flu or car accidents or gunshot wounds, right? I mean, literally, those are things, and we just live with that and we go on with it. And that's just the way it is. COVID's one of those things as well, right? But we're going to get over this. We see it here. These numbers, think back. That was what caused our economy to crash back in March. Here we are here, and we're going, let's go out and party. It's fine. We've literally changed our views. We've had injections. We know the risk. We're better. We know what we're getting into here. This is not the same thing. We are not the same people we were. This is critically important. Now, consumer confidence, it's taken a hit. There's no doubt. This is the Conference Board consumer confidence, and it's okay. That's pre-COVID. That's the worst of COVID. It gets better, but then Delta variant comes and Omicron comes, and it's kind of suckish. Not bad, but not great. Now I'll show you another one. This is University of Michigan. They put out a monthly survey too, good quality survey. You can see where consumer confidence is here. It's in the true garbage can. The difference is this survey here asks, hey, how about a job? How is the labor market doing? And the labor market's unbelievable. There are 1.7 jobs for every unemployed American. Each unemployed person could have 1.7 jobs if they decided to work. So it's good. This one, by contrast, says, hey, How's inflation doing? Bad. Next question. How about buying a car? Now, only an idiot would buy a car now because there are no cars to purchase. And your last question, would you like to buy a house? Of course not. Only a lunatic would buy a house right now because there are no homes to buy. I mean, you need a house, you buy a house. Housing sales are great as it happens. But you don't go, no one wakes up now and says, oh, wouldn't it be a great day to look for a house? No, because you're going to have a bidding war on all 37 homes you try and buy before you get one, even if you hang in the market like Tammy suggests. It's hard. So this is asking particularly miserable questions, but consumer confidence is clearly taking a hit. This is Vegas attendance. I love to go to Vegas myself. You know, drinking, partying, eating good food. Yeah. This tells you how America's feeling. This is July. This is just as Delta variant began. We were feeling good. Then Delta variant hurt. Then Delta variant goes away. It goes back up. And then Omicron comes. So you can see there's still impacts of the virus, but it keeps getting less. Every successive wave of the virus we have impacts the economy less and less and less. Because we learn to live, we learn to deal, we go on, we're prepared to take risk, and whatever else we're prepared to do. So the Vegas attendance will return to normal. But you do see impacts like here. This is open table data, right? And you can see here, just before Omicron hits, right there, in late November, we're back at 0. 0 is baseline for the whole country. Number of people going out to eat is back to where it was in 2019. And then Omicron comes, and what happens? Because we're nervous again. We're adapting. It's less economically detrimental than in the past. It's recovered quite a bit, but COVID still has impacts. People still don't want to take chances. My mother just is going to turn 85 in a couple of weeks. I keep telling her, Ma, you got to stop licking doorknobs. Just hold off a little longer. I know it's your favorite thing to do. Just let it go. All right? If you put all this together, household consumption sees 69% of GDP is fine. It is. It really is. Yeah, down in the last couple of months, again, Christmas and all that sort of stuff, and Omicron, right? Not going out and so on. You put the trend line through it, it's just a little above where we are right now. So we're fine. Household consumption's good. Massive fiscal stimulus, massive monetary stimulus. Yeah, it's okay. We're good. We're fine. Now, how about firm sentiment? This is manufacturers. They're objectively happy. They've been a lot happier, but over the last 6, 7 years, last 20 years really, 60 is about as high as it gets. 50 is neutral. Below that, you're shrinking in a recession. And here, above 50, you're growing. This is okay. This is a good number, but it's weakening a little bit. So consumer sentiment is not great. Manufacturing sentiment is good, but a little bit declining. This is services. And they're still strong at 60, but they were much better because Delta and Omicron have done them a dirty deal, right? People thought, oh yeah, restaurants, going to be great, football games, whatever it is. And then the rug was pulled out from under them. So they're weaker, not bad. But again, the Fed is, let's look here at small business. How's small business doing? They're okay. Nothing really, that's you guys. You're all small business, right? It's okay, it's not bad, it's not great. So you have consumer sentiment that's okay, good, okay. Small business, okay, decent, fine. Manufacturers and service providers, pretty good, but declining. And the Fed's got to raise rates in this environment. Some of this is Omicron, but some of this is not Omicron, right? It's hard to know. And what's the big problem our economy faces? It's inventory. You go to the store, whatever you want to buy, you can't get it. It's ridiculous. You go into a hardware store and you friggin' want a hammer. No, sorry, we don't have those. A wrench? No, we don't have those either. You want, hey, but we'll sell you ant traps. No, I need a hammer, really, you know. I want wire. Sorry, we don't sell wire. We didn't get our shipment. Why are you here? And I almost began to yell at the poor people. It's not their fault. But retail inventories, look at this. This is like 8 months of no inventories. I mean, you can argue how low they should be or how high, but they're basically somewhere between 1.35 and 1.5, 1.4 or 1.5. That's where they live. This is 30% lower. There's nothing to friggin' purchase. And that causes inflation. Because whatever you want, you can't get. It causes home inflation, car inflation, everything else. When this ends, I don't know, but we're going to look at it now in some detail. First, here. This is number of ships off the coast of LA Long Beach. That's the biggest single port, I think it's two biggest ports in the US. You want the good news or the bad news? What do you want? Bad news. The bad news is the number of ships off coast is really high at 110 or 100 or whatever it is, 110. You want the good news? It hasn't gone much up in the last couple of months. This is as bad as it gets. Auto sales hit bottom. The number of ships offshore has hit peak. This is as bad as it gets. Our supply chains are as miserable and as rotten as they'll get. Therefore, the inflationary pressures from the lack of goods and the services as well that need some of the manufactured stuff for them should begin to ease. How fast? That's a big question. But it doesn't get worse than this. Now, when does it end? I'm going to show you two slides. This one, where the date is from July 30th, October 1st, November 4th, and this one where we add Jan 14th. So if you go back a couple of months, back to the summer, the expectation, the lightest color, was that it would be over. Supply chains would be done pretty much by quarter 1, 22 now, or quarter 2, 22. That was 60-70% of all the respondents. And it included yours truly. In one of my crappier calls of my life, I really thought that, by the end of the year, there'd be noticeable improvements in our supply chains. Wow, was I wrong. So wrong. It hurts, but I was so wrong. So then we asked again in October, that's the middle color, when does it get better? You can see it shifts from here and here to more like here and here. They've gone from Q2 to second half of 22. Now in November, it begins to shift even more to the second half of 22. You with me? Now let's push it forward to Jan 14th. Now we're in second half of 22, but a bunch are now in 2023. So we keep pushing out the recovery. So the supply chain's not going to fix itself overnight, and it's not going to happen quickly. But the worst, I really think, is over. Here's a graph you can get an idea of how messed up and crappy our supply chains are. This goes back to 97, so you have 25 years of supply chain data. And the point is, look at this. We had one bad month in September, I don't know when, 2011 or something, for a month. This is a crazy up, and now it's worse, but this looks like it's as bad as it gets. I called the guys up who make the index. They all think, they're three guys, they all think this is as bad as it gets. Federal Reserve Board of New York puts it out. So this should be the worst. You can see it in firms. Firms don't make anything. They're not busy. How can this be? You can't buy anything. Inventory sucks. We're out of everything. And yet firms are barely making any more now than they did pre-COVID. You go, that's not bad. Pre-COVID, that's pretty good, right? No! Pre-COVID sucked. Manufacturing was in a recession pre-COVID because we were having a trade war with China at the time. We were imposing tariffs on them, and they were retaliating. Sales activity. Manufacturing was entering a mild recession. Now manufacturing is happy because they can sell whatever they make. They just can't make anything. They can't get raw materials. They can't get parts. They can't get labor. They can't get anything. But at least they can sell it, right? Then they couldn't sell it. But firms aren't all that busy. Capacity utilization's not high. So what do firms do instead? They buy supplies. Laptop computers, Zoom, Teams. Okay, Teams is free, but you get the point, right? They buy any plexiglass sheets at hotels. I don't know why they have plexiglass sheets. You've been to a hotel, the plexiglass sheet. What do? You go, hi, can you help me, please? They got a mask, you got a mask, right? It's ridiculous. But kidding aside, this investment in equipment, look at this. Look, this is crazy. This is the dot-com boom and bust, housing boom and bust. Here, it takes several years for it to recover. Years. This is 2000, and this is what, 2008? 8 friggin' years for investment in plant and equipment, in equipment, not plant, to recover. Here it takes 4 years to recover, the housing global financial crisis. By contrast, here, it takes about 6 minutes. And then not only does it recover, but it goes into friggin' overdrive. This is the first time we've really invested in equipment in 20 somewhat years. Why? Because there are no friggin' workers. If you can't find workers to work, well, I'll buy machinery instead. You can buy an arm a mechanical electronic arm, to make hamburgers. This is the hamburger meat, that's the fryer. It's expensive, the arm costs money, but it's cheaper than a person. So firms are investing in robots and artificial intelligence, machine learning. This will pay dividends. Productivity in Q4 just came out yesterday, was 6%, a stupendous number. I'm not sure the whole that's a one-off maybe thing, but nonetheless there are signs that labor productivity is improving because firms are investing in so much in equipment because they can't get workers. That's good for the economy too. Look at corporate profits. Damn, they're phenomenal. Why are they so good, you figure? There are a couple reasons, I'll give you a few. First, if you borrow money in your business, interest rates have gone. So whatever your interest costs are, they're way down. That falls to the bottom line, right? Second thing is we're more productive. We're making more. GDP is now 2.5 percentage points higher than before COVID, and our number of people in our employment is 1 or 1.5% down. GDP up, employment down. We're more productive, number two. And number three, firms can raise prices. Firms couldn't raise prices for decades, right? There was Amazon, there's the web, you can compare. I want to buy like a suit. Look at the label, I'll go online, I can find a cheaper suit somewhere. Everything goes online. You have shop bots that help you buy everything. But now everyone's raising prices all the time. So now is your chance to raise prices. If you're not raising prices in other industries, you're an idiot. Why are you taking 6% commission? Raise it to 8. I'm kidding. DOJ will yell at me or something. German antitrust, I'm sorry, I apologize. Mea culpa. But you get the point. Firms have pricing power. You put it together, their profits are well up. So what do they do with the money? They buy their own stock back. And now here I digress. I'm not a financial advisor. You cannot sue me for the advice I'm about to give you. I have no license, I've passed no tests, I don't know anything about finances. Nothing. Now, look at this graph. This is the housing bust. In 2009, the economy was at its worst. Did firms buy back their stock? No. They waited until stock prices went up, and then they bought their stock back. Here in 2020 was when the economy was at its weakest. The stock market was in the ground in March, April. Remember 2020? Every day you turned on the TV set and your retirement date went out 5 years. Every day. You work until 100, 110, 120, 130. I'm going to have to sell my children. I mean, this was looking really grim. Did firms buy back their stock? No. They waited till prices went up in 21. So what I'm telling you is buy stock in the midst of a rotten recession. There and there. And you'll probably be a winner. Again, don't sue me. Don't take my advice. Talk to your financial advisor and your lawyer before you do anything serious. But it's a thought. Kidding aside, firms are buying things. So what happens? Profits are good. There's less stock to purchase. And what happens to the stock market? It friggin' goes on a hayride. At its trough, it was 2,200, right? Where is it now? Friggin' 4,800. It's over 100% higher than where it was 2 years ago. And now we fret that it's down 5%. Are you out of your minds? Of course it's decided to take a break. No, you can't climb Mount Everest, literally climb every day. It takes a base camp, and you go back, it's cold weather, you gotta change your oxygen tanks or something. This is terrific performance. Forget the decline, take it from there. That's still 3,300 to 4,500. That's a third increase. That's unbelievable. This is fine, thank you. Earnings are fine, productivity is decent, workers will come back. I mean, I'm not saying the market won't fall 10% more tomorrow, that's the point. But the fundamentals here are decent, they really are, right? And look at household balance sheets. This matters to you when you want to sell a house to somebody. Households have cash. Not every household, lower income people don't, clearly not. They're actually spending out the savings that they accumulated during the forced savings and the moratorium, the eviction moratorium, and the forbearance and the student loan stuff and the stimmy checks and so on. But people generally have money. That's why the prices are what they are. Just think of it this way. You're a person, you have good income, you make $100,000 a year, you're fine on income, you have no savings. But now COVID comes, you're stuck at home. You and your wife and your kid each get $5,000 in stimmy checks. Wow, that's kind of nice. Savings. Then you don't go anywhere. I have friends of mine, relatives call me up. Elliot, we used to go out with family and friends, like you, they tell me. But now we stopped because of COVID, and now we're saving $2,000 a month. And you know what? Our friends and family aren't worth it, they tell me. That's cruel. That's really cruel. But anyways, so you're saving $2,000 a month, you got $15,000 in the bank, and suddenly you have $30,000, $40,000. You can make a down payment. Okay, not in Denver maybe, where houses cost $3 million, but in many cities, people suddenly have extra cash. That's what drove, to some extent, the housing market, right, back in 20 and 21. Get out of Dodge, bad city, lots of people, too much density, I want a backyard, and I suddenly have some wealth I can spend on the down payment. Look at savings rates. They went up like crazy. Households changed for a year and a half, close to 2 years. Savings rates were well elevated from this level where they're back at now. They went stimmy check 1, stimmy check 2, stimmy check 3. You can see it right there. Now the stimmy checks are gone. We have our jobs back. The economy's good. Savings rates have returned to where they were before, 7% roughly or whatever the numbers. We still have this ball of savings. And that's still going to drive some home buying and some service provisions and purchases of goods and so on. But it will dissipate. Supply chains improve. Workers come back. Demand comes down. Inflation weakens. I fundamentally believe this is a short-term phenomenon. Longer term than I thought. But still, this will not be, inflation at the end of the year will not be what it is now. It'll be meaningfully lower. It really should be. I thought it would be already meaningfully lower already. I was wrong, right? So maybe I'm doubling down on the wrong thing, but I digress. This is bankruptcy. The data for 21 corporate bankruptcy came out, and it's the same. So corporations in blue, households in red. The data that I've seen for 21 preliminarily is pretty much the same as it was for 20, super low. Again, you didn't have to pay your mortgage, didn't have to pay your rent, didn't have to pay your student loans. Here's stimmy checks, here's unemployment benefits, and if you kept your job, you had nothing to spend your money on. Who declares bankruptcy at a time like this? So households have money, no one's declaring bankruptcy, we can afford things. That's why prices of cars, cars are crazy expensive. A used car now is like $30,000 for a used car. That's ridiculous, right? But there aren't any. Now, so households are doing okay. They really are objectively. They're not feeling great, but they're financially in pretty good shape. But this inflation's making them very upset. It really is. Inflation's making them angry, right? Firms are doing okay. They're not great, but they're doing pretty well. All in all, this is okay. That's why I see the first term in GDP, strong I, firm investment in equipment is good too, and inventories. Government spending, G, the third term, not so hot. This is a normal story, though. I want to put it in context. That's the dot-com bust, fiscal policy stimulative, and then it's contractionary. The housing bust, fiscal policy is expansionary, and then it becomes contractionary. Then we have COVID, fiscal policies expansionary, and then in the recovery becomes contractionary. What makes this interesting, however, is look at the duration of this. This is a long time, and that's a long time. This is kind of a long time, and that's really a long time. And this is really brief, and that's really brief. We're living in like dog years. I mean, remember Delta variant ended in June, end of June. I remember I took off my mask. I walked into an elevator, I didn't have a mask on. It was a near erotic experience. I felt the electricity course through my body. It was remarkable. Within a week, my mask was on because friggin' Delta variant came back. And then it went away and I was happy. And then crappy Omicron showed up. I mean, we're living in 3-month cycles. It's just crazy what's going on. Yet we're adapting. 2 years ago, we couldn't have imagined adapting through all this, and now it's sort of become normal. I have a niece, she's 3 years old. I walk out the house, she goes, "Uncle, uncle, uncle," and she hands me a mask. Kids learn quick what's important. To her, going outside means wearing a mask. To me, it's this effing mask. So government spending is not going to come to the rescue. Now, President Biden did pass the bipartisan infrastructure bill, which included this piece right here, transportation, buildings, and utilities, kind of, right? Not this or that, but this. Now, you're going to tell me, okay, $1.2 trillion of stimulus money, that's $1.2 trillion. No, this is not going to be very inflationary. Why? All right, if we go back to stimmy check 1, stimmy check 2, and stimmy check 3, that was $5 trillion of stimulus, purely deficit financed, that instantly came at us within a year. $5 trillion in a year. That's a massive amount of money. This is $1.2 trillion, so a quarter as much, over 10 years. So it's a quarter as much, over 10 times as long. Moreover, we were already at baseline 600 billion over the next 10 years. So this is an addition of only 600 billion extra on top of what we were going to spend. Now, okay, that's not trivial. It's more than I make in a year or two, so I'm paying attention. But it's not that big. Moreover, the government has taken money from other sources that was available to pay for this extra. So this isn't really extra money. It would have been spent already, but on something else. So the tax increases, the 10 years, only 600 billion. This, in the short run, it'll raise wages because we're short workers and exacerbate some supply chain problems. But it won't really start until 23, and by then some of these problems should go away. So I don't think this will make much of a difference economically. It may add a 1/20th of a point to GDP, that's good. Firm investment will add a 1/20th of a point to GDP, together a 1/10. That's not bad, accumulated, compounded over decades, it adds up, but this is not such a big deal. If you put it together, this is GDP. This is reasonable guesstimates. 5.7 for last year, about right. 4 for this year, maybe a bit of a stretch, but reasonable. Maybe 3.5, I'm more comfortable with. And 2.4, maybe 2.2, but you get the point. Now, this is important. You look at this data, and you go to yourself, the natural response is, oh my God, GDP's crashing like a rock. It's gone from almost 6 to about 2. This is terrible, right? No. Don't think that for a second. No. Don't think it. It's not bad. The thing is, 2021 was miraculously good because of all the stimulus. 22 is good because there's still some residual stimulus floating around. But come 23, we're largely on our own. And that's what our economy can produce. So by the end of 23, we're back to normal at 2.1, 2.2% growth, because that's what our economy can produce given labor productivity growth and population growth, right? Which is not much on population. We'll get there in a little while. Now, we talk about this inflation being a bad thing, and it's a bad thing, don't get me wrong, I understand that. But it's a highbrow problem to have. If we look at the last recession, the prior recession, the unemployment rate went down really slowly. I'm going to show you graphs about this. But look what we have now. We have an economy that's not only made up all the lost ground of COVID, we're on the verge of surpassing the trend growth that we had pre-COVID. You go, that's nice. Yeah, it's nice. But you know what? In 2008, after the global financial crisis, it never happened. Our economy never caught up. So the equivalent of 2008, it was like this. And that gap persists to this day. Our economy never regained the lost stuff we could have gained because we weren't forceful enough in pushing growth. This time we were very forceful. There was massive fiscal stimulus, and as a result, of course, a massive monetary stimulus, and as a result, our economy got back on track really fast. And the benefit is, for the rest of our lives, we haven't lost any economic growth because of COVID, which is remarkable. So the inflation's a problem, yeah, but it isn't nearly as big a problem as not returning to trend growth, which we never did after the global financial crisis housing bust. It's a big deal. Now, let's talk about labor markets. I'm sure all of you have terrible stories to share with me about labor markets. You want to hire someone to do some social media for you, you can't hire anybody. You want someone to do some errand running for you, work in your team, you can't hire anybody. You lower your standards. Okay? All you have to do is show up. Even that's a barrier that most people can no longer fulfill. No, be nice to the client. Oh no, that I don't do that. That's not what I do. I just show up. Now let me tell you, it's bad out there. I get it. Wages are going up, you can't get workers, yeah, but not as bad as you think. Here's why. This is total employment in the country. This is the dot-com bust. We lost 3 million jobs, right? From 133 to about 130. 3 million jobs. It took like 4 years to get those jobs back. 4, maybe 5 years to get those jobs back. But you get the point, right? Okay, this is the global financial crisis housing bust. We lose 8 million jobs peak to trough. 8 million jobs. It takes us like, what? 7 years to get the jobs back? I don't know exactly, but you get the point. Here, 3 million jobs, 4 years, 8 million jobs, 7 years. These are grindingly slow recoveries from relatively small problems. Here we lose 22.5 million jobs. 22.5 million jobs, more than all the jobs in Canada. So the thought was, it's going to take a damn long time for these jobs to come back. So the Fed, in one of their more stupid maneuvers, said, we're not going to raise rates till 24. That was really dumb. But it seemed reasonable at the time. And this brings me to a rule I'm going to share with you. The rule is, when people think you're omniscient, like people think the Fed is like they know things that you don't know. No, they don't know anything you don't know, because no one knows the friggin' future. But when people think you're omniscient, the rule is to shut up. Because if you say something, all you can do is hurt people's perceptions of your omnipotency or omnisciency or something. So just shut up. People think you're already omniscient. You don't have to prove anything. But the Fed did, and now they have to walk it back. I digress. So the recovery here has been meteorically quick. By the end of this year, we'll recover all the lost jobs. Less than 3 years to recover 22.5 million jobs. This is faster than the loss of 3 million jobs back there. That's nuts. Supply has come back really quickly, workers. The problem is demand came back right away because of the fiscal stimulus and the stimmy checks and all that stuff. So here we are in July of 2020 when things are horrible and demand is there. It's come right back. It was normal, collapses and bam, right back. Supply comes down and it's coming back pretty quick, but not as quick as demand. It's a demand problem we have here, not so much a supply problem. So now, let's look at the inverse of this graph, and let's look at unemployment. Unemployment took a long time to come down from the dot-com bust. It peaked long after the recession ended, and it took from here to there, that length of time, for unemployment to return to its low point, whatever that is, right? Near where it was, not quite as low. Look how long it took here. That's a friggin' decade for unemployment to come back to where it was prior to the recession. So the thinking was it would take at least a couple more years to get it down to where it is now. But instead, no, it took like 30 minutes again. How could this be? This recession was different. It wasn't a loss of confidence. It was like a natural disaster, like a tornado rips through your country. And you rebuild the houses and you're back to good again. There was no fundamental loss of belief in the system and so on and so forth, right? But there was something aiding and abetting the speed of the decline in unemployment. And that's this, the labor force participation rate. People just stopped working. They stopped working because they got rich. Their house price, they bought a house here in Denver, they took your advice, they paid like $100, now it's worth $3 million. They go, I'm out of here, I'm retiring. I bought the house from Chris, he told me he's a good agent, thank you very much, out. They quit because they're afraid they'll get COVID. They're 63, and they don't want to anymore get exposure to COVID. They were, for example, a nurse, or imagine being a manicurist. Here, do my fingers. Every half hour. They do enough people, someone's going to kill you. You quit. Right? So that's reasons people quit. People quit. People aren't even looking for jobs right now. You know why? They don't look because there are so many of them. Because I'm not working now, I'm on vacay from my stimmy money, right? It's going to end in 4 months. So in 3 months and 30 days, I'll go on LinkedIn. I'll say, I'm looking for a job. I have a good smile. I'm friendly. And I'm not mean to customers. I'll get 30 job offers with a $1,000 offer from each one if I go for an interview. I'll go for 30 interviews, get $30,000, and then go back on the sofa again. Because why bother working? You can just get money by going for interviews. That's my job, is doing job interviews. That's what I do for a living. I'm a professional interviewer, interviewee, I guess is the case maybe. But you get the point. So here's some examples. This is retirements. They're above trend because of the reasons I explained. Wealth and fear, driving both of them. The second one, if you can't put your kids in daycare or school, you can't go to work in some cases, right? You simply can't. It doesn't matter what now schools, I read this, schools, literally, they have something called mental health days. Have you heard about this? And they close the school on a Friday or something. And I want to call them and say, I'm a parent, my mental health depends on your school being open. Thank you very much. You're ruining my mental health, and that's bad for my kid because I still beat the kid. I'm joking. So open the damn school. So the schools are open now pretty much, but the daycares aren't back because the daycares are thinly capitalized and they can't borrow money to bank. So they can't get money for a daycare. So you can't drop your kid off at daycare, you can't go to work. So we lose another 1 million workers there. So 2 million retirement, 1 million here. Oh, then there's people have died. 900,000 Americans have died through COVID. By Memorial Day, it'll be 1 million. I'm telling you, those who are employed, in that 1 million, they're not going back to work. It's my promise. I'm forecasting that for you, right? Not coming back. So people have died. 300,000 workers have died, right? Then there's this. People who are employed, who have a job, who normally go to work, but can't this week because they're sick. And look at the number. It's normally 1 million. Now it's 3.5 million because of friggin' COVID. So you lost 2 million more workers there. Yeah, they're officially being paid and they have paid time off or sick leave or something, but they're not making widgets. So you lose here, and then it gets worse. There's more. Immigration. Trump tightened up immigration, which could be a good or bad policy. I'm not interested in going and saying Trump is good or bad or Biden's good or bad. No. The point is the change in policy has reduced the number of immigrants to the country. Had we had those immigrants, some of them would be working. It would help our situation right now. We don't have them. But we're not over. There's more. People have quit to make their own businesses. Why, you ask? Why not? Think about this. You don't have to pay your mortgage or your rent or your student loan. You got a stimmy check and you got unemployment insurance that pays you more than you were making when you were working. Why not open up your own business? You've always dreamt of it. Here's your opportunity. So what happened? People took advantage of it. Now in the long run, this is good for America. More businesses, more creative people. Some of these businesses will be successful, employ lots of workers. Great. In the short run, it sucks. Right? So you got a lot of dynamism going on. You have people who are saying, look, my job used to be cleaning bedpans in a hospital. You know what? My future, out. I don't see bedpans in my future. My uncle died or my brother died. I almost died. I'm not going back to what I was doing. I need something more satisfying in life. People are finding better jobs, having better careers. This isn't altogether a bad thing, but in the short run, it sucks, right? So look at this. This tells you how crazy our labor markets are. It's obvious what's on the slide. Can I skip it and just go on to the next one? No, okay, I'll explain it. This is quits. Look at the blue on that side. It's percent of the labor force that quits every month. So right now, 3% of the labor force quits every month. So how much is that compared to history? Well, I'll give you some answers. .com boom, 2.4% quit. Housing boom, 2.2% quit. Just before COVID hit, when unemployment was at a 50-year low, 2.3% quit. 2.4, 2.2, 2.3, call it 2.3. That's a great economy. When people are quitting their jobs, they're feeling good and empowered, and they're telling their employer, you're number one, right? What's it now? It's at 3. It's 20% better than it's ever been. We've never experienced this. Employees have such strength now. I'll give you one story that encapsulates this. A friend of mine lives in Minneapolis. Their kid does Uber. In Minneapolis, a normal city. In the course of 1 month, this kid picked up 4 people in parking lots that drive trucks, always on a Monday morning. Finally, he asked, you're the 4th trucker I've picked up in a weird parking lot on a Monday morning at 10 o'clock. What is going on with you and why 10 o'clock and why Monday? He said, well, check for last week just cleared the bank. So I got paid, and now I'm quitting my job. I'm parking my truck at the nearest convenient parking area, leaving the keys in the truck, calling them up, and now I'm flying because I've changed companies. I've gotten a $5,000 signing bonus, and I'm flying to get my next rig I'm driving. And every 6 months, they quit their job, and they get $5,000 each time they do it. That's $10,000 extra a year. When you're making 100, 150, that's a lot of money. That's this. If this number stays high, wages keep going up. This number has to start falling for wage inflationary pressures to decline. How fast this happens depends how quick the workers return. And I friggin' haven't got a clue. If I did, I'd be lying to you, right? So let's look at wage growth. You want the good news or the bad news? He doesn't want any news, he's leaving. You want the good news or the bad news first? The bad news is it's pretty high at 4.5%, the highest it's been since 2002. You want the good news now? Inflation's 5 or 6%. This isn't even keeping up with inflation. Real wages are declining. Wages are going up, but not as fast as inflation. If inflation comes down and wage growth stays what it is, that will lead to wage growth. But maybe wages will go down at that point because workers will come back and that'll reduce inflationary pressures. I don't know. I don't know what's on the minds of millions of workers because we've never experienced a labor force like this before. This is totally unprecedented. I can understand the sociology and the psychology. That's what I'm reading on. It's ridiculous. So now, look at the difference. This is total wage growth. Okay, now break it down by two parts. This is the guys, women, who have cojones and who say, I'm leaving my job. I'm getting more money. These are the losers who stay in their old job. They get less. It pays to quit your job. So I quit my job and I tell my friend, they tell their friend, and we all quit in our jobs. That's what's happening. 36% of the labor force at the rate we are now are quitting their job. That's a third of the country. That's 55 million workers who are changing their jobs every year, getting paid more to do it moreover. This is crazy. Now, who's getting the money? Mostly low-wage workers, and this makes sense. Okay, I'm a brain surgeon, for example. How many hospitals will hire me? And are there more aneurysms in a recession? Maybe there are, but you get my point. I talked to my several proctologists. Okay, I'm joking. I don't have any. They're not changing jobs and changing hospital systems because the number of invasive procedures hasn't changed much. Economists know, doctors, lawyers, accountants, there hasn't been a real change. But if you're changing bedpans or changing soiled linens in a hotel, whoa, the demand for your services is huge. And to get you to go back to work, look at what COVID's done. So the lowest wage workers have been beating the band since 2016, but then COVID comes and it goes crazy. Everyone's better off. The second group is also better off. The highest and second highest, not much of a difference. But the lowest wage quarter and the second quarter have done much better because they can easily switch jobs. It isn't hard to move to a different job. If you don't have to have skills to get the job, it's easy to change jobs, right? I mean, think about it. The higher up the pyramid you go, the harder it gets. Now, let's talk about inflation. Is inflation here? Well, I'm not so sure. I don't know. We can argue about it. Inflation's not so bad. They call that skimpflation, right? You go to a hotel, they don't clean your bed, your bath, your room anymore. You go places, the service just sucks. The restaurant takes 45 minutes. The menu has like 3 things: hamburger, hot dog, and shrimp. That's it. That's all we sell. That's it. It's like when you go to Sturgis. During the Sturgis week in North Dakota, the restaurants serve nothing except like 2 things because they have 10,000 bikers in every restaurant. I'll tell you my Sturgis story later. This is inflation. There's inflation. There's absolute inflation. But it's nuts. This is not normal. This is a one-off problem that results from this demand that's gone way up instantaneously and supply coming slowly, the wrecking of supply chains, and simultaneously millions of workers leaving the labor force. Who could have thought this up? Had the Fed been on guard a year ago, when inflation was 0.1%, they would have started raising interest rates. And you would have said, what are you, out of your minds? There's no inflation. They'd have had to start raising interest rates somewhere around here. That's lunacy. Are they behind the curve? Yeah, they're behind the curve a bit, 3-4 months, but not more than that. No. So inflation's nuts, but we don't see this often. And why do I think this inflation's not persistent? Because of this. This is the components of CPI. What's unusual is this. What's this? Goods. What are goods? Supply chain. Supply chain problem goes away, this thing disappears. And then this is energy. Deflationary energy, inflationary. Deflationary, inflationary. What happens next? Deflationary. So the energy goes away. If you get rid of this bar and that bar, all you're left with is the normal thing, services, and a little bit here on food. That's normal inflation. Okay, it's 3%, you know, so this will dissipate. But when is the question? If it happens in 3 months, great, the Fed's off the hook, they raise rates a few times, we go home, we're done. If it goes away slowly and a year from now inflation's still 5 and not down from 7, the Fed's got more work to do, and that's bad, because if they raise rates too much, they might drive us into a recession. That's what I'm a little bit nervous of. And look at where the inflation's coming from. To validate my prior slide, look at this graph. Energy, energy, energy. So 3 of the top 5 are energy. And then it's cars and cars. Or we're smoking tobacco because we hate life, obviously. You know, they'd have marijuana, but it's illegal for the federal government to follow marijuana. They don't know it, whatever, I don't know. Probably up there too. But it's energy and cars. That's what's driving inflation. This can't persist. The car problem goes away. The energy problem, oil prices don't hit $200 a barrel. It doesn't happen. So I think it does. Moreover, real wages, as I mentioned to you before, have been declining pretty much for the last 8 months. Consumer confidence is kind of mediocre, decent, but nothing great. Wages are declining. The Fed's raising interest rates, so monetary policy is tightening, but not tight. And fiscal policy is tight. The economy can't continue to grow, and the economy is naturally going to slow anyways from 5.7 to about 3.5 this year, next year 2.2. You can't raise rates that much in this environment unless inflation really sticks around. Now, there are 2 scenarios where inflation can stick around. Here's the first. The first is we all see 7% inflation. And we all say, well, I want a 10% pay raise. 3% real, 7% just for inflation. If we all demand this, the cost of goods and services goes up by something. And that increase causes inflation, which causes wages, which causes inflation in goods and services, which causes wages. And we have demand pull, cost push inflation. Once we believe there's inflation, we'll ask for more money, which will cause inflation. The Fed wants to stop this. That's why they're raising rates. The Fed cannot solve the supply chain problem by raising interest rates, but they can dampen demand. And that's what they're going to do, and hopefully reduce inflation such that we don't think 7% inflation is normal, demand 7% pay raises, and that just makes it a self-perpetuating, self-fulfilling prophecy. That's reason number 1. We're going to get to reason number 2 in a couple of seconds, so I don't want to preempt my slide. First, I want to talk about Wall Street. Wall Street says now we're going to have 7 increases. Bank of America came out today. Barclays said 3. Bank of America said 7. I mean, it's all over the place, right? But Wall Street generally thinks interest rates are always going to go up. This is the Fed funds rate in black. So that's what the Fed tells it. So they're going to raise the Fed funds rate on March 16th at 2 p.m. They're going to raise it by a quarter point. These little things here are what Wall Street expects the Fed to do based on the price of treasuries and inflation-protected treasuries or TIPS. You look here, from here to there, a period of 14 years roughly, 13 years, the Fed never raised rates, not once. It was flat, down, flat. Wall Street thought up, 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 up. Oh, they got it right once. A freaking broken watch gets it right once too. This is telling you nothing. Don't even watch CNBC. They just waste your time. It's truly economic porn. It is. It excites you with nothing there, right? Breaking news on something. Yeah, there's nothing going on. They have it's this program, and I watch once in a while, and then I kick myself for wasting 2 perfectly good hours of my life when I've learned nothing of interest. No one knows. Literally, before the stock market opens at 9 o'clock in the morning, they go to some schmo like you. And they say, hey, what's your name? What's your name? Ryan, what's the stock market going to do today? And you go, I don't really know. The Bulls and the Bears are fighting it out. Technical analysis is kind of foggy. Hard to really tell. And then 8 hours later, after the stock market goes up 3,000 points and has the best day of the entire year, making you look like a jackass, they ask you, what happened to the stock market? And he starts spouting off, well, it's obvious. Everyone knew this was going to be a great day. Because at 4 o'clock, we're all geniuses. And at 9 a.m., none of us know anything. So don't pay attention when anyone tells you rates are going to do this or that, because no one friggin' knows. Now, Now that I've told you no one knows the future and no one knows what's going to happen to interest rates, let me tell you what's going to happen to interest rates in the future. You're welcome. Again, I don't know exactly, but this is my thinking. The Fed's behind the ball. Inflation is very bad. They have to do something. Their hand is forced because we're almost at full employment right now, right? 3.9, we're 2.5, 2.9 million jobs. We're nearing full employment. Inflation's really bad. They must get inflation down. They have no choice. They have to do everything they can to get it down. But they don't want to move too fast because inflation may well decline all by itself. As GDP goes down, supply chains get fixed, more workers enter the labor force, productivity enhancements come, and demand dissipates. They don't want to overdo it here. Because you raise rates too much and have to lower them, that's not a good thing. You really don't want to do this. You want to have a one-way direction here. So they're going to, I think, raise rates 4 times this year. They'll raise rates in March, they'll raise rates in May, they'll raise rates in June. I don't think they raise rates in July. That's when they tell us they're going to start balance sheet runoff. Talk to me over hors d'oeuvres about that. Then they'll raise rates in September, next meeting. They meet every 6 weeks. Then comes October, no increase there because of election coming. After the election, they could raise rates a 5th time. But they're going to try not to do that because our economy can only withstand probably 8 or 9 hikes. Because remember, by end of 22, we're back at, end of 23, we're back at 2.2% growth. You can't have high interest rates with a slow growth economy. You'll drive us into the drink. So the Fed has to delicately balance the fact that they're behind the curve, inflation's bad, they gotta do something, but inflation may go away all by itself. They don't want to kick the economy into recession. They're going to raise rates as slowly as they realistically can, keeping the market happy and praying to God inflation weakens. And it all depends on inflation. And we'll see, right? So I told you, this is the yield curve. The yield curve tells you the differential between interest rates, short duration, 2 years, for example, in this graph, and 10 years. And the difference, as you can see, is 0.6 of a point, 60 basis points. A 10-year treasury pays 1.3. A 2-year treasury, 1.3. A 10-year treasury off of which mortgages are based, that's the single most important financial number in the world, it's a 10-year treasury, pays 1.9. That gap is 60 basis points, or 0.6%. That means the difference between the 2-year and the 10-year isn't very steep. If you look here, it was 100 basis points more, 60 versus 1.6% versus 0.6, much steeper. A steeper curve suggests a better economy. People are thinking now the Fed's going to overdo it. They may not get a recession out of it, but they're going to slow a growth down. They're going to be too aggressive. The Fed doesn't want to raise rates. If you invert the curve such that the 10-year number gets below the 2-year number, you end up in a recession. Not because the curve's inverted. The curve is telling you you got a real problem on your hands. It isn't mechanically done. Banks stop lending, confidence goes into the garbage can, people expect a recession, and this is a manifestation of that problem. If the Fed raises rates too much, they could invert the curve too. So the Fed's got a whole bunch of things out there going, I'm not sure, I don't know. So they're not going to raise much. The second reason inflation could be bad, the first was wage growth because of mental perspective. The second is rents. You talked about rents. Rents single-handedly could drive the inflationary process because they're 30% of CPI, and the Fed's favorite measure, PCE inflation, they're about 20%. And the problem is the inflation in rents doesn't come in 1 month, like a can of beans. It takes 12 months to get the inflation reading. They don't ask everybody who has a rental property every month. So this could get worse. If this gets worse, this alone could force the Fed to raise rates more and could conceivably drive us into recession. So there's the rent issue that's a concern to me, and the mental inflationary expectations concern. They're both out there, they're both meaningful and serious. Now, here's another measure of rent. This is owner equivalent rent. Talk to me over the booze out there and the drugs. Here's a third one, residences, but they're all going up, up, right? This is not a great thing. Now, let's talk about housing, why you're here. My news on the housing front is unequivocally good, and it mimics what all 3 of you have said. All 3 of you. Greg, Wright, Tammy, all of you. It's good news. The housing market is strong for the foreseeable future. 5 years, 6 years, 7 years. Beyond that, I don't know, but you have a bunch of years to go on this. Why? Because the damn builders didn't build any effing houses for 10 years. They couldn't get workers, they were depressed, people left the industry after 08, 09, you don't blame them. And then no one wanted to build a house or buy a house in 2010 because everyone lost their shirt on a house. So as a result of that, inventory steadily declined for 12 friggin' years. This is not exaggeration, but I'm accentuating. Inventory peaked at over 4 million back in 2007. It's now under 900,000. It's 1/5 what it was. Okay, that's the worst month ever. Yeah, I get it, right? But you get the point. It's down by 75, 70, 80%. This is unbelievable. There are no houses to purchase. How much that house cost? $137 million, like the most expensive house. That's not a bad deal. It's around 8 months. I'm buying it. Chris, you, I will all get together. We'll do a social media thing, what do you call it? Crowdsourcing. We'll buy the house. There's nothing to friggin' buy. That's why sales are flat. The thing is not that sales are flat. Don't think of it that way. Think of it that given how low inventory is, it's friggin' remarkable that there are buyers out there waiving all their rights, having escalation clauses, and giving up everything. That's how desperate. This is a sign of a desperate buyer market. This is a great sign of buyers who are just, whoa, they want the house, right? It's crazy. And why? Because there's no inventory, 2 months of inventory. At 2 months of inventory, you're going to get roughly 1 to 1.5% appreciation a month. That's 12 to 18%. And that's what the country's getting. Denver generally a little more. Boise twice as much this past year, as you pointed out. But this is what we're seeing in them here. Well, you look at NAR data, or look at FHFA data, or Case-Shiller data. They're all looking at it a little differently, but they're all showing pretty much the same thing. Wild, huge increases. I suspect that inventory will start to rise. As interest rates go up a little bit, a few people pull out, right? Builders build 100,000 more homes a year, not a lot, a little more there. And inventory goes from 2 to 4 months or 3 months, right? And appreciation goes to 8, 10, 12, say 12 or 12, 13% this year from 18. It's still very high, but not quite as high. You can see it here. This is the FHF, this is the Case-Shillers. I like them personally the best, but you can pick the index of your choices. You can see these lines don't herky-jerk a lot. They tend to go, once you know how they're moving, they move that way for a long time until something happens. And something happened there. I think that was the peak. People are starting to run out of money. Interest rates are getting higher. There's no more homes to purchase. The desperados already purchased a house. So now there's a little bit of a pullback. I'll reassess, I'll rethink. Maybe prices will come down. They won't. That's not going to happen, right? But I think the peak may have been hit here. In terms of existing home sales, this is stellar. It's stellar. This is the best housing market we've had since 2007. And back in 2007, there were 3 million houses for sale at the end of the month. Now there are 800,000. These buyers are a different breed. Yeah, the realtor, you go out with a buyer and they look at a bunch of houses, you develop trust. Then one day you call the buyer, there's a house going to come on the market in 36 minutes. I think you should buy it. Okay, I'll buy it, sure. But other realtors are doing the same thing. Yeah, I think you put in a $100,000 escalation clause and throw in your children on top of the purchase price, because that's what it's going to take. This is unbelievable. If you look at this data, you would think there was tons of houses to buy, but they're not. This is desperate buyers who will do anything to get a house. This is wildly different than it was back here. The only similarity is the total number of sales, but the conditions of the sales, fascinating. Look at home builders. They're as happy as they've ever been, except for a few months there. This is unbelievable, because they can sell every house that they make. The problem is they can't make any houses. So look, other houses for sale. This is built for sale in red, built. So you can walk in and buy it now. Nothing. There's no existing homes to buy. There are no new homes to buy. Okay, you with me so far? Why are there no new homes? Because regulations cause builders to pay a lot of money for land. So entitling is difficult, setback requirements, facades, all kinds of stupid things. This is not the codes of the home itself. This is other stupid things, right? They can't get workers like no one can get workers. They have more workers now than before the recession. One of the few sectors in the economy that does, res construction. But they can't get enough, of course. And those workers who come back, many do reno, because house prices are going like this and interest rates are like that. Great time to do a new bath, new kitchen, add a floor, add a pool, whatever it is. So they do it. So there's no workers there. And on top of that, lumber prices are crazy. Okay, they're down from their second peak, but they're still high. This lumber thing is crazy. It's caused builders and home builders and car makers, every industry that manufactures something, to go from just-in-time ordering to just-in-case. Oh, I don't need the lumber now. I will in 3 months. Let's buy 12 tray loads. I'll build a storage facility. So because you can't get lumber, you order extra lumber, causing the prices to go up. And now you want to build a storage shed you don't need. The lumber you're probably not going to want. This is nuts. But this is what's going on. The Journal had an article in today's paper yesterday's. Households are now hoarding again. Why? How much toilet paper do you need? Do you go to the bathroom more in a recession? I found no data to validate that. Builders aren't building cheap houses. You talked about cheap houses. There are none around, right? Because the homes that were cheap are now expensive or torn down or something, right? Oh, they're so bad. You go, whoa, it's cheap, but I don't want that house. You know, it's a great house, but the realtor says, but it has no bathroom. You know, there's something comically wrong with the house. These homes under 200,000, okay, it's a joke in Denver, I get it, none. But now under 300,000, we're going to start to lose those homes too. There are no affordable homes being built anywhere. So you think under these conditions of prices going up like crazy, inventories down, existing home sales for sale, nothing around, new homes, builders will be building their brains out. No, not really. This is multifam, single fam, total. Yeah, it's going up, mostly because of multifam. Single fams, after a spurt's been declining because they can't get land, they can't get labor, they can't get lumber, you know, the normal problems. Multifam's a little better at it. It's trickling up steadily because rents are going up so fast and doing so well that the rental market, it's easier to build a tower and put up 50 units than build 50 single fam houses. It's just physically easier and cheaper, and the financing is easier as well. So rentals doing better, building of rentals doing better. And then you have to deal with this. You talked about this, the single fam for rent market. You as realtors have to know about this. There are firms out there wanting to buy homes to rent, whole neighborhoods. Builders are building whole neighborhoods and whole subdivisions for renters, for property owners, some REIT in New York City that's going to own. But they've got to talk to you. You need a pipeline of people. This is a form of sales. It's a one-time sale. You'll never get that house again to sell. But they're going to buy it whether they buy it from you or somebody else. So be aware that this is a non-trivial percentage of the market and growing, right? Credit conditions will get easier, so more people will want to buy. As rates go up, yes, but credit conditions will ease as the economy improves and gets back to normal. This number will rise, that's a good thing. And demographics are in our favor for the foreseeable future. For the next 5 or 10 years, this cohort of you Americans, the biggest cohort in history, will move into the 30 to 35 age bucket, and that's when they buy a house. Was it you who showed the average age of a home buyer jumped up from 26 to 33 or something? That's where we are, 33 or 34, whatever the number was, right? So they're going to want homes, and there are no friggin' homes to buy, so rents will go up. I mean, this is a crazy mess that we're in, but the demand for housing will be unrelenting, and there won't be enough homes. Now, I've convinced myself that I'm right. This is a strong market segment to be in. I want to go extra innings with you guys. This is rentals. This is your department. There's no rentals. Now, the data came out 2 days ago. I don't have the data here. I apologize. This number actually fell to there. So now we are unequivocally at the lowest rental vacancy rate since literally 1985, maybe. I don't know, whatever, right? It's almost a 40-year low of vacancy, 36 years. The lowest. So there's nothing new to buy, nothing existing to buy, and you can't rent. So what do? You buy a trailer. I looked. Oh, first, this is the National Multi-Housing Council. Above the x-axis, good for landlords. Good here, good for tenants. This is amazingly good for landlords. Landlords are loving it. They're jacking up their rents, their vacancies are low, they're laughing all the way to the bank every month. This is the cost of a trailer. A single wide trailer. Before COVID, $55,000. Now, $80,000. Now, I have empathy. A guy like Chris, he wouldn't be seen as single wide. No. So because of you, Chris, I got double wide. But look at there. 108 or 105 or whatever, 140. And you don't even own the land. This is a cross between a home builder and an automaker, is what a trailer home is, right? And they face the same problems. No inventory, no supplies, no parts, no workers, no transportation services. So you put this together, you can't find a new house, you can't find an existing house, you can't find a rental, and you can't find a trailer. The bridge, living under the bridge, is looking more and more appealing now, right? I mean, this is unprecedented, it really is. Quickly, what around here, and then we'll wrap it up. First, this is the nation. The nation's good. 22 will be a good year. We'll have 3.5% growth, well above trend. That's why job growth will be much better than normal. Normally 1.5, 1.8 million. We should get 3.5, 4 million jobs this year because we're going to be growing much faster and workers are going to be coming off the sidelines and hopefully preventing the unemployment rate from falling further. If it falls further, the Fed has to raise rates more. If more workers come in, like last month, the unemployment rate jumped up from 3.9 to 4. That was great, and we had a huge increase in employment. That was the best possible scenario. This is Colorado. You're doing well. You're slowing down because your home prices are going up. The immigration from other states will weaken to some extent because the prices now in Colorado, you are now a very expensive state. The best news is you're near California. So all these rich Californians keep moving east. They move to Boise, they move to Las Vegas, they move to Reno, some come here, right? Some people who were priced out of Seattle and Portland come to here as well. But you're no longer a cheap, fun place. You're an expensive, fun place now. But you're still growing nicely, right? That's good. And people want to retire here. I live in Florida, people retire more there, right? But they retire a lot here. Great weather, great climate, relatively low taxes. Climate and taxes, you need climate, taxes, and home prices. If you have all three, you're magic, but no one has all three. You only get 2 of the 3 at any location, right? And last but not least, if you look at what state's the most popular in the country, you're at number 2, behind friggin' Hawaii. You know, you can argue YouGov, and they're as good as surveys anybody, right? But you're a remarkably popular state. You have captured the imagination of America. The weather, the skiing, the climate, the 369 days of sunshine, whatever it is, right? I don't know, it's something good. To put it together, 22 is going to be a fine year. Not as good as last year, but fine. Going to be fine. We're going to create lots of jobs. By the end of the year, we'll have got back all the jobs we lost in COVID and probably a little extra. The Fed's going to raise rates on March 16th at 2 p.m. They'll raise them by 25 basis points, a quarter point. This 50 basis point, 0.5% increase, not going to happen. It will reduce the Fed's ability to dicker around later in the year if they raise too much earlier on. They can raise them every meeting if they want to. There's still 7 more to go. They can jack them up really high pretty easily. There's no need to do 50 basis points now. Inflation should go away, in my opinion, over the year. That's where the Fed's going to want to raise rates as slowly as they can and use tough language and tell markets they're paying attention. Every meeting's live. They're prepared to do what they have to, and before they go to bed, they're going to pray really hard for low inflation. Spending on services will rise as we walk out of our house. This is my name, my cell number, phone number, Twitter handle, and email address. I put out 70 words in economics 5 days a week. The easiest way to get it is to take your phone, text the word bow tie, 1 word, no hyphen, no space, to the 5-digit number 22828. You'll be prompted for an email address. You'll give it to me. You'll hear from me every night around 9 or 10 p.m. local time. I hope I've given you insight into the economy, into labor markets, into inflation, the Fed, and housing markets, where I see all these things going and why. I will surely be wrong in some of these. If you remember what I said and come back next year, you can beat me with my bad calls, okay? I am more than happy to entertain them and discuss where I screwed up and why it happens, I know. I hope I haven't kept you away from other important things in life. Thank you for sharing this lovely afternoon with all of us. It's been a joy and a pleasure. I look forward to seeing you next year. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Give a quick shout out once again to our sponsors. Could we give them a round of applause for putting this great program together? Guaranteed Rate Affinity, Coldwell Banker Realty, Guardian Title, American Home Shield, Prudential, Realty and Real Property Management Colorado. Hey, before you go, I want to let you know that the live stream that we're shooting tonight will be available if you want to look at it later. You just need to go to the website, coloradoeconomicsummit.com. coloradoeconomicsummit.com. Easy enough. Go there. You can watch the live stream again. For those of you who are joining us live tonight online, thank you for being here. Thank you for being here in-house with us. Have a great night, and thank you again.